guys, so this was one of my new what ifs that I actually am pretty excited for now. I just got finished watching episode 1 and I watching episode 2, but I stopped to make this what if on Forever. If you haven't seen Forever, it's on, I think, CW Speed or CW. It's about a guy that's basically just immortal in short term. He's immortal, and basically, this TV show was actually really good. Well, it is really good by now, so it's really good. Now, also, I am gonna be doing what if Deku was, what should I call it? I also will be doing what if Deku was a Greek legend. So yeah, I'm gonna be doing that. What if Deku was a Greek legend? Okay, what if Deku was born during the time of Greek mythology? So yeah, so basically, let's get into it. Now, my lineup for what ifs before I get into the what if, my lineup for what ifs that are going to be coming up this week or this summer is going to be what if Deku was call it what if Deku was Star-Lord Part 2, what if Deku had Spider-Man's powers Part 3, what if Deku I mean Part 4, what if Deku had Spider-Man's powers Part 4, also what if Deku was the Invisible Man Part 3, and also what if Deku had the powers of Dino Squad Part 2. I also will be doing with Deku was a Speedster Part 3 or Part 4, whatever. Part 3, because I did a Part 2 and then I stopped. So those are the next what ifs I'm gonna be uploading. So yeah, so after this what if, I will be uploading what if Deku was a Greek legend, or I might be uploading what if Deku has Spider-Man's powers Part 2. Now let's get into it. Now basically, Deku was born during another era, before quirks and before pretty much a lot of stuff, even before humanity. Deku was born about, let's say, 200 years before the first war ever. And basically, Deku is, what was it? Deku was born during the whole entire, Deku was born 20 years before World War One. Now, basically, sorry guys, that's the wrong arc. So Deku's actually gonna be born during the caveman period. Deku's gonna be born pretty much a caveman. Now, basically, Deku was born a caveman, and basically, Deku grows up to be about, it's about 16. Deku's grown up to be about 19, but Deku looks 16. Basically, Deku is being a caveman, walking around. Deku's pretty smart for a caveman, no cap. Basically, Deku is walking around hunting for some food, but we see a huge explosion. Deku looks up and he sees a meteorite hit him in the chest, or sees a meteorite fly down and lands on top of Deku, hitting Deku with radiation so powerful and also so much cosmic energy to a point of pretty much this meteorite was filled with God energy. Now basically, this energy gave anybody else hit with it or absorbed it temporarily gave them incredible human powers, in some cases immortality. But since Deku absorbed all of it and got hit with a full blast, Deku was permanently invulnerable. Permanently immortal. Now basically, Deku is immortal now. Deku cannot die. And Deku did get a bunch of extra abilities as well. Deku had the ability to proceed, pretty much see things a lot more quicker than average human, basically having about 10 times faster reaction time than a normal human at peak physical health. Deku also had incredible sight. Deku also had extra senses, as in a spider sense of some sorts, and Deku also had increased what was it? Observation, or pretty much Deku could see things that no one else can see pretty clearly, like the marks on people's bodies and the height and the way they move their house and pretty much the way their heartbeats or the way they breathe. Deku can figure out whether they're lying or not. Pretty much Deku being pretty much a genius. Deku's intellect was boosted up to basically straight up superhuman level. Like, Deku's brain was literally smarter than, pretty much, let's say, smarter than the Pretty much Deku's brain was so smart to a point of Deku can pretty much solve the most complicated equation ever in the world. Deku can literally figure out rocket science in 2 minutes. No, Deku can figure out rocket science in 2 minutes. So basically, Deku was incredibly smart. Deku can also save cases in seconds. So Deku would be a great, detective. Now basically, Deku, we skip a couple years and basically the meteorite hits the world. Basically, Deku in this time was blown away by the meteorite, but Deku came back. When Deku comes back, basically, what was it? Deku in these 20 years didn't know he was immortal, and didn't really see that his abilities were kicking in. Basically, Deku also, since Deku has all those extra abilities, Deku also has superhuman agility, speed, and strength. Meaning that Deku can pretty much, what was it? Deku's strongest amount of strength that Deku can do is basically lift a whole entire monster truck with both hands. So Deku can lift a whole entire monster truck and punch as hard as a locomotive. So Deku is pretty strong. Now, so Deku, when he punches, it's like getting hit with a locomotive focused and concentrated into a punch. So yeah. So basically, Deku. Sorry guys. So basically, Deku. So basically, we pretty much end our story there. Now, since Deku was blown away or exploded during the whole entire, what was it? A whole entire meteorite that killed the dinosaurs, Deku was killed as well. But Deku came back about 20 years after the meteorite. Deku woke up pretty much looking around the world, seeing that there's pretty much dirt, dust, and fire everywhere. We skip a couple centuries or millennias, and we get to basically World War II. Now, Deku has seen so much pain. Now, basically, we skip the World War II, and Deku is basically on the field, pretty much helping up a slave soldier. Now, basically, Deku, since he's been around for such a long time, Deku does not approve of slavery. Deku basically picks up, Deku picks up the slave man and a slave soldier, and basically, starts running off. He tries to save him, but he's too late, and the man bleeds out. Deku is pretty much angry at himself that he couldn't save him. Pretty much, a soldier says, "What are you doing around that dead man? Get up and fight." Pretty much, Deku getting angry at this says, "This man died." He says, "That man's property. He's nothing better than just property." Deku gets angry at this and says, "Don't call him property." And pretty much, Deku gets smacked in the back of the head by another soldier saying, "Get your head in the game and let's get ready." Pretty much, the war starts going right in it, because this was probably in the middle of the war. Now we skip to the end of the Civil War, and basically, or World War II, I think. Yeah, World War II. This was World War II. Yeah. So basically, Deku. We end at the end of Civil War, and Deku is one of these soldiers that lived. Now, basically, surprisingly, Deku did not die during these events. He actually survived without getting killed. Now, guys, I didn't explain Deku's immortality. Basically, Deku does not age. So basically, Deku is technically 19, but he looks 16. Now, by the time Deku is about, let's say, like about thousands of years old, like about 50,000 years old, Deku will look about, Deku will look about, I think Deku's older than 50,000 years old. So Deku will be, let's say about the time the My Hero Academia series is over, or ends off, Deku will be about 20 in looks in this What If. And basically, Deku, pretty much, after World War II, Deku takes on a new, pretty much, identity, because Deku's lived for so long that he has to take up a new identity every year, pretty much taking the identity of his child, or his quote-unquote, secret child, or fake child, to make sure no one sees that he's not aging. Pretty much saying that he's, his son. So basically, Deku, over about a couple of thousands of years of him being alive, Deku has taken on thousands of identities over the years. Now, basically, Deku starts getting to a point where Deku pretty much, sick and tired of taking, pretty much secret identities, but he can't fake now or quit now because, he can't just do it now because he's going to get caught. So basically, Deku just goes along his life, pretty much keeping quiet to himself and pretty much saving people and being, quote unquote, a good person. Now, we skip all the way to, we skip all the way about, all the way to, let's say, we skip all the way to, hmm, Deku lived through that. So basically, Deku has learned a lot about life. Deku has seen a lot, and Deku has gotten a lot of wealth over the years, pretty much investing in companies, pretty much like, what was it, Uber, and basically investing in, pretty much companies early on that would later become the most famous companies ever. Basically, Deku being actually the first person, and Deku actually being the founder of Walmart, because Deku's been so old. So basically, Deku founds Walmart, but gives the writing away to the original founder in Walmart in our, in reality, and basically, goes on to his life, going in country and country and city and state all around the world. Deku at this point has ventured around the whole entire world, and Deku has learned so much stuff. Deku's learned about every single fighting technique in the world. And I mean literally every single fighting technique in the world, even fighting techniques that are extinct. Deku knows them because he's lived so long. He has learned every fighting, you know, technique ever. Deku's learned every single one of them. Now, basically, since Deku knows pretty much years, centuries, and thousands of years of combat training, Deku is a very skilled combat instructor. Deku basically is able to kill a man with one hit. Just one hit. So basically, Deku is incredibly skilled. You don't want to fight Deku. So basically, Deku's names that he's taken on was Jarrell, or Draken, or Josh, or David. Very much taken on normal names, and some he's been taking on names that say Immortal in different languages. And basically, Deku pretty much one day wakes up and basically he sees in the news about the new regiment of quirks that are going around the world. Now, basically, Deku's confused. Now, basically, during that whole time meteorite, guys, basically, evolution was pretty much stunted. Now, quirks are actually supposed to appear in the next generation of humans, but Deku took that meteorite full on, absorbing most of the quirk genes. So Deku is technically the first quirk person in the universe. Basically, since Deku is the first quirk people and the most powerful quirk person, Deku, pretty much one of the other powers Deku does have is quirks that nullify other quirks can't work on Deku. Say for instance, Eraserhead's quirk doesn't work on Deku, or Quirk Erasing Bullets doesn't work on Deku. So yeah, so basically, Deku sees quirks, and basically we skip a couple of years later when quirks become the norm, and we skip to our main, character. Or, we already skipped to Deku. We skipped to Deku, and basically Deku takes the name of Azuka Midoriya. Deku takes the name of Azuka Midoriya, basically taking the name of a child that died a couple of years ago, doing the same, pretty much Deku, the original Deku in this universe. This is original Deku, but original Deku was supposed to be born in My Hero Academia, dies as a miscarriage. Deku takes the name of Azuka Midoriya because Inko dies while giving birth to Deku, and Deku dies as well. And pretty much Asashi pretty much moves out of Japan and pretty much starts a new life, being taunted by the memories of his supposed to be born child is now dead, and his wife is now dead. So Asashi and the Izuku family is out of the picture. Basically, Deku is basically, Deku was like super wealthy. He already has like hundreds of mansions around the country and around the world. Deku has about 3 mansions in Japan, basically living in one, a couple of yards or blocks away from UA. Basically, Deku takes the name of Izuku Midoriya, saying that he's the son of his father, what was it, Greek and Junk. Yeah, that was Deku's last, Greek and Junk. So basically, that was Deku's last, identity. Deku wanted to change his identity because that was just a stupid name he made to be funny. Now, basically, he took that name for about 50 years. So yeah, so Deku did not actually like that name at all. So basically, Deku, Deku took that name for like I think 20 years because Deku's like doesn't look anything over 20. So basically, Deku sees like quirks are a new thing. So Deku thinks that he doesn't even have to change his identity anymore because he can just say that he has a immortality quirk or a quirk that allows him not to age. So Deku says that. Deku pretty much signs up for UA, not really training because Deku already has centuries of years and pretty much years, centuries, and pretty much millennia of training. So Deku doesn't really need to train at all. Deku just sits around in his mansion drinking wine and basically waiting until the day of, the entry exams. Deku goes to the entry exams, and pretty much since Deku's wealth, Deku gets Deku gets a recommendation. Deku takes the recommendation, and pretty much gets into UA pretty fast. Deku goes to UA the next day, and basically walks into class when he's seeing Todoroki and a couple other students. Deku walks into class and sits down. Deku sits down and pretty much, you know, sitting down. Now, over the years, Deku's quirk or ability has gotten a lot stronger. Now Deku can pretty much bench press a whole entire locomotive and punch as hard as basically about 500 locomotives moving at the speed of light. Deku can punch incredibly hard and throw about as hard as basically the spaceship leaving, the atmosphere. So basically, Deku is incredibly strong at this point because he's lived and his powers have pretty much evolved over the years. Now basically, we skip all the way to Deku. We skip all the way to Deku's prime. Basically, Deku's in class, and Izawa walks in the class and explains to the class that they're doing quirk assessments. And they get up. They get into their gym clothes, and Deku gets ready. Deku's told to throw the ball first because he got the highest score. Deku got the highest score. Deku gets the highest score and basically sees a familiar face. A blonde-haired boy that he saw a child of about a couple of years when he moved to Japan. When Deku moved to Japan and got his first mansion, he saw pretty much a very old, wealthy, or very old Japanese blonde-haired man, pretty much with his wife. Now, that was soon to be Bakugo's, great grandfather. Basically, Deku sees Bakugo as a child on the street one day when Deku is, taking a ride to a business opportunity. Now, basically, everybody in Japan know about Deku, because Deku actually, People in Japan know about Deku because Deku has been living for about 20 years, and basically, 19 years. So basically, Deku is basically the youngest, entrepreneur in the world because he owns hundreds of businesses and also has so much money. And basically at this point, Deku doesn't really need to even work because Deku has so much money saved up. And basically everybody in class knows about Deku, and when Izawa says Izuku Midoriya, they say, "Well, you mean Izuku Midoriya, as in the entrepreneur Izuku Midoriya?" Pretty much Momo looks at Deku and says, he's the man? He's the guy. Pretty much, Deku has heard the opportunity of having an arranged marriage with Momo Yaoyorozu. Basically, getting that note or getting a letter from Momo Yaoyorozu's mother or father, or both of their parents, both of her parents, and basically saying that they want to do a arranged marriage with her, or a quirk marriage. But basically, Deku was thinking about doing it, but you guys can decide. Should Deku have a quirk marriage with Momo? So, yeah, you guys decide. But basically, Deku pretty much grabs the ball and says, step back. And pretty much Zawa says, what? And he says, you have to step back for this. And Deku pretty much goes for, a lunge, pretty much getting ready. And Zawa tries his quirk on Deku because Deku is going to throw it a little bit too quick. But Deku throws it anyways, making a huge smoke, thinking that Zawa can't see him, just doesn't use his quirk. A huge gust of wind and smoke and pretty much the sand or the dust or the dirt of the floor pretty much burst up into the sky, blinding everybody. Pretty much Deku throwing the ball. Deku throws the ball, and everybody looks at Deku and looks up into the air, seeing pretty much a fireball, like a whole entire freaking meteorite fireball going outwards out of the, atmosphere. Basically, Deku throwing the ball and seeing that Deku's hand is pretty much obliterated, seeing that it's blood and scratches and cuts and pretty much bone showing on his hand. Deku says, don't worry, and pretty much snaps his own neck. Pretty much everybody's going crazy, going, what's going on? And pretty much Zawa says, what did he do? And pretty much Deku's neck starts to go back in place and pretty much snap in place. And Deku's arm starts to regenerate. Deku gets back up and pretty much says, it's one of my quirks, and says, I'm immortal. Pretty much Zawa says, interesting quirk. And the other one is not one of the quirks I've ever seen. And Zawa basically takes everybody to the next, task, the sand pit. Deku jumps with the sand pit with ease. For the long jump, for the, race, Deku gets a pretty good score, getting second place after Ida. Pretty much for the, for the grip test strength, Deku gets a pretty good score. And for the new, pretty much other test I put into my what is the weight test. Pretty much it's a 5,000 ton weight that all students have to throw as hard as they can to determine their quirk strength or their physical strength. Pretty much, Zawa tells Deku to throw the, pretty much thing. First, Deku picks it up with ease and chucks it about 20 feet in the air, and it lands about 32 feet on the floor. He lands about 32 feet. The highest feet they can get is about 500 feet. So basically, Deku, walks off, and pretty much everybody else throws it. The highest scores is Todoroki, Bakugo, the duplicate arms guy, and also Kirishima. So everybody else got an average score, and Mineta, Denki, and Zero didn't even get a score at all because it was too heavy for them. So basically, yeah. So guys, Deku and everybody else gets sent back home with their syllabus, and Deku goes back home. But he gets stopped. Deku was walking back home to his, his butler's, pretty much, what it's called, limousine, about to leave. But pretty much Momo tells Deku to wait up and pretty much starts talking to Deku. And pretty much Deku knowing that I know about your mother and father saying a quirk marriage. Momo says a quirk marriage. And pretty much Deku says, yeah, let me think about it. Pretty much Momo says, okay, and pretty much grabs Deku by the shoulder and says, well, I'll be thinking about it. And pretty much kisses Deku on the cheek and walks off. Deku is pretty much shocked at this, but Deku isn't really shocked at it because Deku's had about a couple of lovers over the centuries of Deku living. So, but it's pretty much Deku's been around for a long time, so Deku has fallen in love. So basically, Deku, looking around, just goes to his limousine and sees Momo, leaving in a fancy car. Deku gets into his limousine and tells, his butler to go home, and pretty much we arrived at Deku's mansion. So I'm just going to give a little tour and a little bit of pictures of Deku's mansion. Now I'm going to give you a tour of all three mansions Deku has in Japan. This first mansion Deku has, Japanese built, and this is the inside or the front of Deku's mansion. This is the front of Deku's mansion, and we move on to his next, pretty much the front of the inside of Deku's mansion. We move on to the second mansion Deku has in Japan, and it's this one. And this mansion actually is on the Momoya Rosu residence. Deku and the entrance of this, or the inside of this house, looks kind of like this. So yeah, this is Deku's house where he keeps most of his most valued, antiques like ancient swords and books and pretty much relics, and also what was it, oracles and stuff like that. And this is Deku's other house, and more or less Deku mainly parties at this house and has most of his parties, or has most of his romantic nights with some of the people that he, has a couple of pretty much fun with. That came out wrong, but basically, this is where Deku has most of his parties or most of his gatherings with his friends or business partners at. This is the inside of the house. The back of the house is just pools and decks and pretty much all sorts of gaming rooms and stuff like that. Deku goes to his first house in Japan, pretty much walking into the front. Pretty much this house holds some of the minor antiques Deku has, like some old Japanese artifacts, like an old Japanese sword, and also, what was it? Flaz the Impaler, aka Japanese, Flaz the Impaler from Japanese lore or Japanese history, has one of his, sticks that Deku actually got impaled by Flaz the Impaler once, and came back pretty much. And when Deku comes back, when like a sword or object is still in him, the sword actually, just teleports out of Deku's body. So yeah, so basically Deku, the spear or like the wooden stick that impaled Deku just has it on like a mantelpiece in one of his rooms, saying, that's one of the painful deaths I've had over the years. No, basically Deku has a bunch of other Japanese artifacts like straight up super old katanas, super old clocks, and hand watches, pretty much stuff like that. Also having old Japanese armor and all his other stuff. Deku basically sees that, he has to make his own hero costume, so Deku looks in a hero costume when he gets back home, and we skip to the next day. So I'm gonna leave it off here, guys. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you guys like, subscribe, and as always, guys, have a blessed day. The next video I'm gonna be uploading is what if Deku had Spider-Man's powers part 4. So yeah, see you guys later. Bye, deuces, and as always, guys, have a blessed day.